Welcome back, everybody, to the Flatiron Syndicate podcast. We're here in the shop. We've got Dylan and Carter from the shop, and then we got Jeremy visiting the shop doing his wiring magic. And we had to pull him aside because as we're recording this, it is Wednesday, the 16th of April, and big news has happened in Subaru today, and we had to talk about it. The new Outback, the 2026 Outback and Outback Wilderness has been revealed. But also, Subaru has revealed their next electric car, which is the Subaru Trailseeker. And it is interesting. Basically, the Cliff Notes version of the Trailseeker are, it's kind of like a stretched Solterra. It is all electric, but is now going to be the most powerful and the quickest Subaru ever made, if it actually does what they're advertising currently, which is it will have 375 horsepower and be capable of going from 0 to 60 in 4.3 seconds. But it's a wagon. It basically looks it kind of looks like a Legacy Wagon that is electric, that's the fastest Subaru that they've ever made. I don't know. I have feelings about this, but let's talk about it. Let's throw it out there. What do you guys think?
Yeah, it looks like they kind of just took a Legacy with like a bike pump and just, kind of inflated it a little bit. But I can't say I dislike it. I mean, the looks itself are not too bad. It's not necessarily my cup of tea, but I think as far as EV SUVs go, especially, it's not bad.
Well, they're calling it an SUV, but it really looks proportionately. I mean, it looks more like a Legacy Wagon. It does not look as tall. I think it's going to be shorter than the Outback. It's definitely going to be shorter than 4Runner or something in that traditional SUV space.
Remember that one of the main problems, the range problem, the effect, the battery efficiency problem that all EVs are fighting. One of the main components of that is air resistance.
Yeah.
That EVs to have an effective range and be economical need to have really good air resistance, drag coefficient characteristics. It's one of the reasons why EV trucks aren't great trucks, because when you tow with them and you increase the weight and substantially increase the drag coefficient of your combination, then you end up absolutely destroying your range.
Yeah.
So I suspect that. I'm coming into this from an interesting perspective. I was at a race all week, and I was at the Olympus rally.
Yeah.
And completely plugged in, racing, rallying in an Evo.
Yeah.
Not a Subaru this time.
But we'll still let you in, but that's all right.
Yeah.
Just don't do it again.
I don't know. It's pretty. This Evo's pretty good, man. I don't know.
Man. Yeah.
So I was completely disconnected from the world. I come in, get back home yesterday, all worn out. Come back to work today, and then, oh hey, by the way, what do you think of those new Subarus? I'm like, oh, what?
What are you talking about?
Yeah, right.
Welcome back.
So you guys are looking at these two new cars that have been revealed. So the Outback is even more battle Outback than the outgoing model.
Especially the Wilderness.
The Wilderness, but even the non-Wilderness version, it's like, when the WRX, the VB, was launched, we were all making these memes about oh look, you wanted a turbo Crosstrek, here you are. Well,
Right.
So just the plastic is.
Yeah.
They found even more places to glue the plastic onto the side of it.
Yes. Well, I think the side I like the sides better of the Outback Wilderness. The front, the big Subaru on the grills, I don't know that you need that. The little Pleiades, I think that's enough for most of us. You don't need the big Subaru.
For Subaru
and the
people,
walrus tusks up the front. Yeah.
But it's
a choice.
It took them this long to put Subaru on the front of the car, if you think about it. I mean, it's reminiscent of the reason we don't like it is because it reminds us of when that Ford pickup truck is tailgating you and you see right in your rear view mirror the giant Ford across the grill. Yeah.
Or Rift.
Probably.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Droff. So that's a specific kind of brand marketing.
Sure.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that really like the Wilderness Subarus because of the off-road capability, and I think they're kind of they're differentiating and leading even more into that difference between the Wilderness and the non-Wilderness cars.
Do you know any Subaru do you know any what you consider serious off-road people that are yeah, my Subaru?
No.
Yeah.
Well, I take that back. I have known some through the years, and
And what do? They take a '98 Forester, they put a 6-inch lift on it, and
actually most of them have GLs, but
Welcome to Australia. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
They get some locking diffs from Australia, stick them in their 5-speed, and
All good.
right.
Yep.
but there's still people that want to do it, and well, I don't know. Let me before I even say anything, Carter, you've been quiet. What do you think? What are your thoughts on either the Trailseeker or the new Outback design?
So first, like the Trailseeker, I got excited about, and I can't really put my finger on what exactly I like so much about the looks of it specifically, because it's not the black plastic fenders. So it's the body cladding is, everyone's got their opinion on it, but the side profile in one of the pictures, it struck me as particularly Lavorg.
Yeah.
Are we finally getting the wagon that everybody's been asking for? Maybe.
Well, I mean, Subaru historically has not had great luck with wagons except for the Outback, which is why they've kind of discontinued them. Like, that's why they got rid of the Legacy Wagon. They didn't like the hatchback. Like, people just never quite adopted the hatchback and the GRs as much as the wagons and the GDs. And
in the U.S., wagons are for weirdos. The people who typically would go for a wagon.
It seems like they're coming back. It's like they're cool again.
They are.
Yeah, but like,
It's
I think
it's always that thing of people say they want it, but will they actually buy it? And especially like the performance wagon. But that's where like this first version isn't a performance-oriented thing, not inherently.
Well, that they're not advertising it as such, but I mean, with the numbers, if it really does what they say that it's going to do, I mean, it is one of the better performing Subarus ever.
The numbers are an attempt to sell more of them, because the Solterra was probably a flop. Not a flop, but not
it's actually done okay.
It's done okay. It's done okay because there's a cadre of people who buy Subarus.
Well, and
who would like an EV. I mean, my father, for example, has owned multiple Subaru Outbacks, and when his Outback was nearly totaled a couple of years ago, he was shopping around, and the lack of a Solterra at the time meant he was like, oh, I guess I'm fixing my Outback instead of upgrading.
The thing that's most interesting about the Solterra, like when we tested it earlier, like a couple of years ago, Tasso, Via and I took it up into the mountains. For what it is, for an EV, it was pretty darn capable off-road.
Sure.
Which, like, it really was, it does have some Subaru chops. It didn't have, like, a ton of power, but it felt okay. It didn't, like, none of the performance of the car was that exciting, and initially the price point was pretty darn high. The prices come down, and there's, like, if you want something that's, like, at least somewhat off-road capable, like if you're going to go and do mountain biking, go camping, and you want an EV to do it, like there's just not as many options in that space. There's more coming, and that's the other interesting part about this. Like I'm thinking here of the R2, the R3 from Rivian, and like there's now a slew of electric SUVs that are coming up, but a lot of those are not as off-road capable as what probably this Trailseeker will be, just because it has the same clearance as the Solterra. It has the X modes, which actually worked surprisingly well, like shockingly well actually on the Solterra. So I mean, I think that they're moving in a direction, and I think what they've realized is they needed a couple more wow factors. Like just the fact that it's a Subaru would be enough to get some people in, but they needed to have a little bit more. The range was low. I mean, there was just a lot of things where the Solterra was kind of deficient, especially at the initial price point. But they're fixing a lot of that. And
American car buyers like horsepower numbers.
Yeah,
it's been a thing forever. I mean, they also like. I mean, why does the STI have a 2.5 in the U.S.? Because
big numbers are cool.
Because Americans think big numbers are cool. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, that the interesting thing about that is, I suspect one of the reasons why the Solterra's performance numbers, because that's a software thing to a large extent. The power that an EV can put out is a software limitation as much as it is a hardware limitation.
Well, and it's also tied to the size of the motors, the capability of the motors, and then the battery, because the more powerful, the bigger the motor you put in it, the faster it's going to
exactly
use the power.
That was a range thing. I'm sure that
Yeah.
when when Subaru was figuring out, or Toyota, because Toyo,
Toyobaru.
Toyobaru. Yeah, they were designing that car, and one of the reasons why it wasn't 800 horsepower is because, well, then it would have about 10 miles of range.
Well, and even then, like, range is one of the bigger issues with the Solterra, and it only had, like, I think 200 or just a little bit over, like 205 miles of range. So now, with the Trailseeker, they're saying 260 miles of range. So they're updating the Solterra in 26 as well, and they're saying that will get, I think, 280 miles of range. There's also going to be
the same battery pack in the new cars.
I believe they did. I want to say it's 78 kilowatt hours.
I mean, EV batteries are a engineered component that if you're an EV company or if you're making EVs, you don't want to design a new one for every single vehicle you produce.
For sure, and that's kind of, to a certain extent, that's the point.
Right.
Well, and I believe they've said, this is all new, so I mean, if you guys read something different, put it in the comments. But basically, the redesigned Solterra is using the same components as the Trailseeker. It's just the Trailseeker is getting more of a high power rating than the new Solterra. But there's going to be an XT Solterra that is rated at 338 horsepower, but I don't think they've officially announced, or maybe they haven't come out with full numbers on that, and they don't have a 0 to 60 time. But it's just going to basically be kind of like a shorter platform, and the Trailseeker's longer. Like, looking at the pictures in the back, I mean, this is like, those Outbacks of old, like your Outback where it's just cavernous in the back, behind the back seat.
Yeah. So, what you guys were pointing out that the Trailseeker looks like a Legacy Wagon. Yeah. And I think the reason it looks to you like a Legacy Wagon is because the new Outback does not look like a Legacy Wagon. Which the Outback, for first couple generations of its life, was a trim level of Legacy Wagon, right?
Yeah.
You would buy a Legacy Outback, and it was the lifted wagon. You could even get a sedan version if you wanted to. Yep. It doesn't have as much of the sort of aggressive cladding and features and styling on the body. It doesn't have the sharp lines that the Outback does, and all the sort of modern Subarus, like the Crosstrek was one of the first ones that started getting really aggressive looking. And I'm sure the reason for that is aerodynamics, because getting the range, that plastic cladding on the side of your Outback Wilderness probably actually, technically speaking, reduces your fuel economy. Maybe not by much.
It could.
But it's.
Well, the funny thing is that's actually why Subaru says they're putting like these cladding around the wheel arches and stuff. It's the surface.
Sure.
And the texture that they can put into the plastic, because it like either makes it more slippery or it helps hold the air closer to the surface.
It's more like a golf ball, is what I've heard. Yeah. It like has the divots, and they're little hexagons. If you haven't seen them on the WRX,
they say
how much that works. I don't know.
I mean,
but I might be a little contrary here on this, but I actually think the range for the Trailseeker is almost perfect for what it is.
280.
260. And the reason I say that is because, like, the example I immediately went to in my head was when Volvo was designing the XC40 Recharge. They did a calculation based on how many miles people drive on average each day, then they did it to where that was like 8 days of range. So if you charge your car, if it is a true daily driver for somebody,
you charge it in your garage.
Yeah, you just charge it every night, and you're not going to worry about it. Like, it's 240, 260 miles is not that bad.
As somebody that now does this, I can say that is 100% correct.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, it's more than what you need if it is a commuter car.
How low have you gotten your battery?
The lowest I've gotten it down to is about 100 miles of range.
Yeah. So, if they made a car that had 100 miles of range, that's fine for most commuters.
The Fiat 500e does that, yes.
Right. So to be fair,
but it will make people nervous.
100%. Huh? There's a weird thing with EVs, which is I get more nervous when I get down to 160 miles of range than I do when I have like an eighth of a tank or even the fuel light on in any of my cars.
Right.
And what I when I got my car down to like 110 miles, I was like, why am I so nervous? Because there's like over 100 miles, I'm going home. Like I need to make it 10 miles. Like there's no chance that the battery's gonna run out.
I suspect
but it's just like it's that.
I think it's the time it takes.
Yes, it's the solution. That there's not a quick solution. If you plan ahead, then you can like you're saying, most people like I think every day I'm probably doing on average 25 to 30 miles.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you know that that's what your range is, if I plug my Tesla in at home on a 220 plug, I will gain 30 miles of range in an hour. So like if I know that I'm in a day going to go 30 miles, I plug in for an hour, and I know that I have now added the range that I'm going to use. But it's just like it's the unknowns. Like something happens, you get called up, you got to go on a trip, whatever, and
that snowstorm comes in a bit faster than you anticipate, and
you
then
didn't quite make it out of the tunnel as you thought you were gonna.
Well,
I
so
mean, that's by the way. I'm sure a lot of the audience is Colorado based, but for those that aren't, there is that unique thing where you're like, oh, I'm gonna go through I-70, I'm gonna go through the tunnel and take a trip. And that'll take me a couple hours, and then suddenly you find out you're about to stay on the highway for 12 hours because a semi-truck decided to go on its side and directly block the entire tunnel.
Yeah.
Yep. Oh, when it's snowing and there's a rock slide.
Yes, exactly.
These things happen. I mean, I remember years and years ago, there was an insane, I think we got 18 or 20 inches of snow, and it completely shut down the airport, and I had friends that were coming back from the airport that got stuck on Pena Boulevard in a little Toyota Corolla. And they literally had to be rescued by, I think, State Patrol or whatever, that took them out in it was either a snowmobile or a Hummer or something like that.
Dang.
And then they had to go back, but as they were waiting for rescue, they literally started to have to turn the car on and off. Like they would turn the car on, let it idle to warm the cabin up, and then turn it off because their fuel started to go down.
And that's on the highway to the airport.
Yeah.
Colorado can do that to you.
Yeah. Denver DIA is also weird because it's in the middle of nowhere, but yes.
It's a weird situation, but it's a Colorado thing. It does happen. And I mean, I think the stress level in like a situation like that would be a little bit more elevated in an EV potentially.
Yeah, you're in fear that day when, oh crud, I suddenly need more than 100 miles of range. Well, for some unexpected reason, right?
To be fair, again, as somebody who's now lived with it for 6 months or whatever, you start to just kind of learn that you plan differently.
So I also have a theory about this. So my 3.6R Outback when I fill it up with fuel, the range estimator I believe tends to tell me I have about 360 miles of range. Yeah. I don't believe it.
Yeah.
I don't believe. I've done multiple cross country road trips in this car, and I've gotten it pretty close. I've fuel light's been on for 10 minutes. The range estimator goes from 30 miles to just dash.
Yeah.
It's like, who knows?
Yeah. Well, and so with an EV, and now having made it through some cold weather, the range absolutely goes down, and it's down to a couple of factors. For based on what I can attribute it to is, for one, the battery is just not as efficient when it gets colder. I think when you get below freezing, and then the more below freezing you go, the battery is less efficient, and so it's not able to deliver as much energy. I think just more energy is dissipated because of the way the battery.
I could be wrong about this, but I believe all the Teslas have battery heaters in addition to battery chillers.
From what I understand, it will not. So, to my understanding, it will not preserve the temperature of the battery when it's sat and off. If you leave the car on, it will use the current to maintain the temperature of the battery. But the other factor is that the regenerative braking gets turned off or turned down significantly when it's cold, because it's not able to send as much power to the battery.
Oh, interesting.
And so, now that we've gotten back up into pretty consistent 50 to 70 degree temperatures for the last couple of weeks, I basically noticed I can now go 3 days before I plug the car in instead of just 2.
So does that I've never owned a Tesla. I've driven them, but not in these conditions. It's so does that mean that you're literally your braking changes?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
It's weird, but this is another subject.
It's
for the sake of this conversation, the moral of the story is that when it gets cold, the battery's less efficient, and then the regen is not as much, and both of those things stack, and that's where the actual range goes down significantly.
So we're this is far afield of the topic that we originally started on, right? Which is what we think of these new Subarus, right?
Well, but the range. I mean, the range. Because honestly, for me, the Solterra at 200 miles is just that felt too small.
Too stress-inducing.
Because the other thing.
But we've already established it's fine for you.
Well,
right?
There's another factor that we haven't mentioned, which is you generally don't want to run the battery to 100%. You generally want to maximum charge it to 80 unless you absolutely need to charge it to full. So even with 260 miles of range, 80% of that is 207 miles, 208. So that's really, like, each day, that's where you're going to be starting. Is it about that 200 miles? But like, if you only have 200 miles of range, then you're actually charging it up to, was it 160?
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
And so and going down from there. So like to go from 160 to 100, like that's a day and a half in commute. And again, like, once you get a sense for what the range is, then you kind of are comfortable with that. But there's, like, depending on these temperatures, the fluctuations. There was a day last week when a cold front was blowing in, and we were leaving, and it was like 30-something degrees, and it had dropped below this point where now my regen is not working as it normally would.
Mm-hmm.
And so I used significantly more energy to get home than I did to get to work, because there's no regen happening, or minimal regen happening on the way home. But you kind of get used to these things, but having lived with an EV, I can say that, like, range is a reasonable consideration, and I think the sweet spot is that, like, 260 to 300 miles.
Yeah.
So trade in the 4Runner for a Trailseeker?
Maybe. Well, so...
Legitimately.
Yeah.
Yeah, so before, like, there was really none of that wow factor to me with Solterra that would make me go, like, yes, I could see myself driving this car and enjoying this car through a myriad of conditions. The Trailseeker, it's got some of these wow factors if it really has this power and performance. And it has the added benefit compared to my Tesla where it has the ground clearance, and I know that it has the X mode. So, like, I'm not going to be worried about it in the snow.
Yeah,
Like,
if we get 8
wanted
inches
to
of snow here, you'll be just fine in that.
the traction control system in the Solterra was really impressive in X mode because it can do what electric motors do. I mean, so having, like, this is, I think, what Subaru maybe kind of wising up to, is that you can have some of these off-road capabilities that people expect from a Subaru, but you need a wow factor to really make people more interested in it as well. You can't just do the one thing that you're kind of going to use, or maybe never use.
The Solterra doesn't have active diffs.
No.
It has 2 electric motors.
Yep.
It has 2 electric motors, each paired with a open diff.
No, there's one electric motor drives a standard open diff up front, which drives an X.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And then in the back as well.
Yep, but there's no connection between the two.
Right.
Yep.
But so its X mode is doing the things that basically all the cars do, since all the cars are open diff cars now, which is it selectively brakes each wheel.
Yes, but and you can go watch our Solterra test video.
Yeah.
It is significantly better on the electric platform than on the combustion engine platform, and I think that's because the amount of power that's applied to an axle is completely isolated.
I blame the CVTs for that. The CVT transmissions can't. They use the worst center diff that Subaru ever designed for their cars. They use the MPT diffs. So the issue with that is that ever since. So this was true of all the sort of daily driver Subarus, like the Imprezas and the base, all the NA cars that were like 4-speed autos, 5-speed autos, and then CVTs. They all use their 4-wheel drive system is a front-wheel drive system that happens to be able to transfer power to the rear as well under some conditions, but not very much. Like there's a clutch pack in the center that just actually cannot. Like if for whatever reason you have 0 traction in the front, you have like all the traction in the rear, and you're on an incline, you cannot dig yourself out with a CVT car.
So the interesting thing that I would say that we saw and that we have on camera was that there was a lot more wheel spin.
Yes.
With the Forester on whichever axle was slipping. Mm-hmm. Even applying the brakes, it took a while for it to get enough braking or to actually apply enough force to really stop one wheel so that the power went to the other side.
I bet you that's
but the Solterra
software, yeah.
Well, no, could be. But I think that, too, it's part because it's trying to drive everything equally. But the Solterra, what was really interesting is its ability to basically completely stop the wheel that was spinning so that all the power from that motor went to the other side was significantly faster.
Yeah. I could think of engineering reasons why that is, and it has to do with the fact that, like, the Solterra probably, the electric motors have individual output shaft speeds. The other Subarus require reliant
you have independent control.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you really can do stuff like that. What the front is doing does not have anything to do with what the rear is doing. Exactly. And having experienced that and knowing that the Trailseeker has these X modes and the same clearance, like that's like like for snow and stuff, I mean, that's significant to me.
Well, and with Subaru naming it the Trailseeker, my head,
Yeah.
and like you've mentioned as well, is it competes in the off-road EV market.
Yes.
Whatever that means. SUVs, cars, all these things.
Which makes total sense because it's a Subaru.
Right. And I totally agree with that. I think it's a great thing to do. And Carter, I'm actually interested in your opinion on this a little bit because our resident off-roader and camping person, if you were to take something like that and say they made a wilderness version, is that more tempting? I mean, not for you, probably, but do you think for the average person or any of your friends, or is that like even something that you guys would consider?
Remind me what your rig is again.
It's sitting right there. It's that Xterra.
It's the Xterra.
Xterra go brrrr.
Yeah.
Yes.
That one.
Yeah, that one. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I think no matter what people want or need, there is that thing that bigger is always better. And so I think why not? And if there is an off-road version, it does feel better. It does feel sturdier in some cases or whatever. Like, so I think it definitely would sell a lot for sure.
Especially from a Subaru.
Yeah.
When you have people, there's now a wilderness version of nearly everything. Not everything. This bears that out. But a lot of things, and the wilderness versions do really, really well because the wilderness version, like the wilderness Outback compared to the regular Outback, it gives you just that little bit of extra suspension, ground clearance. It's got the interior that's more geared around like being outdoors and getting dirty and all that sort of stuff. It checks a box for a lot of people that are doing a lot of outdoorsy things here.
Yeah.
And I mean, I could see like a Trailseeker Wilderness Edition that had like a little bit of more of a push in that direction. It might have some appeal.
And that's because I'm thinking like if they were to come out with accessories and these kinds of things for it, which knowing Subaru they certainly will.
Yes.
But if you were to throw a rooftop tent on it, to Jeremy's point of drag and aerodynamics, that's out the window.
You're going to see a big impact.
That's
probably
true.
Right.
in EV.
So then, who is going to take this camping?
Okay.
Well,
Well,
Because it won't
your,
be me.
Your rooftop tent, your cargo pod, your
And what are you going to tow?
your spare tire, whatever the heck you're doing up there. What are you going to tow?
Because
Exactly.
it says they can
True.
tow up to 3,500 pounds,
yes.
which is fine,
Okay.
sure, if it had 900 miles of range.
Well, or
But-
here's the other significant change for 26, which is that Subaru is now moving on to the NACS charger, which is the Tesla plug,
Yeah.
and the cars are going to be able to use the Tesla charging network, which has been the biggest and have the most options for charging.
Yeah.
So, like, if you're going to go further with it, like that's one of the reasons that I ended up getting a Tesla was because of the charging network, because I haven't had to use it yet. But if I wanted to drive like cross country or anything like that, I know that that is the most robust and has the most options for charging. And now Subaru's going to tap into that too.
I'm trying to think, like, if you start in Denver and you're like, hey, I have my Trailseeker and I have my rooftop tent and I'm going out for 3 days. I took Friday off. I'm going to go camping.
Yep.
And you go up to Vail, you have to charge a car
And I think
before you
there's-
go off-road to go
Yeah.
camping. Like,
Yeah, it's true.
you're going to spend the time, okay, I drove there.
Yeah.
I'm almost going to go off-road. I have to be sure that this has full range because I'm going to go off into the wilderness where there isn't. I mean, you can't charge it.
So
like,
they've improved the charging to, I think what they're saying is 10 to 80% charge now with the Trailseeker and the new BRZ, or not
BZ4X, you mean
the
the Solterra.
It's supposed to be something like 20 minutes. So if you go to a
Okay.
Tesla charger,
Yeah.
which you can now use, you plug it in for 20 minutes, and then you're back to 80%.
And I think that's more realistic. I'm
Yeah.
trying to think of, like, I've been camping for 2 days and I'm coming back and it's Sunday afternoon and I have to go to work the next day. I'm not going to want to, like, hey, I'm back into civilization. Okay, let me hang out in my car and charge it.
The planning is the thing that's one of the most different things with an EV, and it's just, it has to be a part of it. And like I will say from my own experience, there have been days where I haven't taken my EV because I forgot. Oh, hey, we've got to drive down to Denver today. I didn't plug it in last night. It's like, well, I would have to plug it in. I have a 220 charger in my garage. The
Yep.
charge rate is 30 miles per hour. So if I needed to go to Denver and back, like I say, I needed to add 60 miles. That's 2 hours in my garage on the charger to add that much.
Wouldn't it be nice if the floor of your garage was a charging mat?
Well, I mean,
Wouldn't that be cool?
maybe.
Yeah, that'd be
Yeah,
very
that
cool.
would solve that problem.
What about all the highways?
Well, true.
We could do that too.
That's harder to do.
I'm not saying it's perfect,
yeah.
but it's one of these things like these are all
So-
100% valid. But yeah,
Because I think as a daily, it's cool. I just seeing as is the Trailseeker
I want to.
seems a little weird.
I want to go back to the thing that you pointed out. That this tagline about it's the most powerful Subaru they've ever made, or something like that, right?
yep.
Okay. So if somebody was like, "Here's your Trailseeker test car," or something like that to me, I swear to God, the first thing I would do is I would take it to the racetrack, and the second thing I would do is put bigger brakes on it because that would immediately be the problem. I'm quite certain. And then the third thing I would do is slam it on its nuts and take it back to the racetrack.
Yeah.
Sure.
I am the guy who lowered my Baja.
Yeah, yeah.
I have an Outback
Yep.
that is also slammed on its nuts.
Okay.
You know that.
So-
When somebody tells me that their Bronco has like 550 horsepower, I'm like, yeah,
All right.
because I don't like it when I'm in a thing that has 550 horsepower and also drives like this.
Yeah. So there's a lot here, and this is the other key thing that I wanted to get to. So thank you, Jeremy.
Yes.
You pull back. Okay, this is the 2026 option.
Mm-hmm.
Subaru has said that there's going to be an electric STI in 2028. Now,
Mm-hmm.
there's been all sorts of rumors that they're coming back with a combustion engine STI too. It seems to be gaining a little bit of momentum, but there's not really been anything from Subaru. So it's a flip of the coin, and now you see this. Now you see, here's this Trailseeker. They're calling it an SUV, but let's just call it a Subaru wagon. But
Yeah.
0 to 60 in 4.3 seconds, 375 horsepower. So
And 8.3 inches too
ground
much
clearance.
of ground clearance.
so
Eight
what
inches.
this means, the big step again is like I think Subaru is realizing that if you want people to get excited about your EVs, they've got to have some bells and whistles. Like if you look at what Tesla did or like what Rivian did, they've got these crazy performance numbers, or like Lucid, they have these crazy performance numbers that gets people really excited about
Yeah.
certain aspects of what the car does. And that's what makes them say, like, you know what, I'm willing to live with this whole charging and planning thing. Because it does all these couple
Sure.
of really interesting and really fun things that nothing else does. And so this is a big move in that direction. What does this mean from, like, you know, a top overview of, like, could this mean for an electric STI?
I want to see the if we want to know what an electric STI means, we need this thing slammed on its nuts with gigantic brakes.
For sure.
Do it.
Well, and see,
That's it. That's
see
it.
the trick with the EVs is it's not just that. The
yes-
other aspect, though, is it needs really good cooling for the battery.
Yeah, sure.
So
but,
we're...
but
like,
that's my point. If Subaru is gonna, if we're gonna believe that Subaru can build an electric STI, then this thing needs to be able to do that right now.
well, the thing is if it doesn't have the cooling capacities built
Right.
into it, it's not going to be able to do that.
Right, but they're selling something that's has 375 horsepower. If they didn't build the cooling and endurance capability into that platform, I don't think they can build an electric STI that will make anybody give a crap about it, right?
I bet. Well, it means that there's at least a possibility that they are not going to try and come out with an electric version of what the old STI was at, like, say 300 horsepower,
Oh, sure.
and
Right.
and be electric. Like this tells me that Subaru can and is willing to build an electric car that has some, like, significant performance. To me, the fact that they're willing to build an electric car that, like, completely eclipses the performance of, like, even the S209. Okay, they're willing to go into this EV arena and actually build something that could be impactful, which is good because if you look at the other options out there,
That's because
they have to do something like that,
That-
because otherwise nobody will.
that's
will be
because
interested.
this car is an American car. It's not
Could
it's not a Subaru in the sense of the way we think of Subarus.
Sure.
I mean, there are two Subaru companies in this world. There's Subaru of America and there's Subaru of basically everybody else.
Right.
And the way that the cars that they have to, and this is true for most automakers. I mean, Toyota sells all sorts of models in the U.S. that the rest of the world doesn't get, and the rest of the
Yeah.
world for the most part doesn't want.
Right.
the things that sell in the U.S. are completely different than the things that sell in the rest of the world.
But
So
the thing with Subaru is U.S. is like 70% of their market. So like
Sure.
to build something that caters to what the U.S. market wants, I mean,
Right.
if we are the lion's share of the market,
But the STI was always a Japanese car.
Yep.
The STIs were always built in Japan and designed in Japan, effectively, to the point where why did the STI top out at 305 horsepower? Because it was a Japanese car, and the Japanese don't care about horsepower the way the Americans do.
true.
Wasn't
Totally different set of priorities.
right. If Subaru had been selling a 420 horsepower STI in like 2015, they probably would have sold a lot more of them. I
They
could
could
believe
probably
that.
still
Maybe.
have an STI, to be
Maybe.
really honest.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, it's like, I'm going to preach about it again, but I will forever die on this hill. I want a hybrid STI.
Sure.
It's
Well-
literally the best of both worlds. You get
But
the
does
tuning
this-
of both.
My point is, does this mean that maybe this is a good indicator that Subaru is starting to learn some of those lessons?
Sure.
And they're
That'd be nice.
realizing, like, we can't just do what we want to do and assume that we build it and they will buy it. That they're actually looking at, because, like, the R2, the Rivian R2 is going to be a direct competitor for the Trailseeker. The R2's price point
Maybe.
starts at $45,000, so that's what's being rumored about the Trailseekers, that it's going to start at $45,000. But the R2 at $45,000 is only going to be rear-wheel drive.
Yeah.
This is going to be all-wheel drive, and if they both start at $45,000, all of a sudden, like, the Trailseeker would have a leg up on the R2 at that point. Overall performance, like the triple motor R2, is I think supposed to be like 600 horsepower or something like that, and 0 to 60 in 3 seconds or just over 3 seconds. So it's probably going to eclipse the performance of this. It's more of an SUV shape. It's going to have more ground clearance. But it's going to be close. It's going to be at least closer than if it was just like a Solterra.
The 3-motor R2 is not going to be $45,000.
No,
It's probably going to be 90. It's gonna be,
65, 70.
it's going to be more than that.
Well, no, because the 90 is the R1.
Okay, but that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
Sure.
yes.
Yeah, I think that you,
They
you
still
think it's
want
going
it
to
to
be
be in the
cheaper.
middle.
think
It's supposed to be. What I've seen, and it's all an estimate, is that the R2 is going to top out at about 55.
It's hard to believe considering how much money they lose on every R1 they sell. They're still
Yeah.
not priced at a place where they're sustainable. So the idea that
They're trying to get the price point
Sure.
down so they can start to move volume.
Sure.
But who knows?
yeah
But I think for this conversation, it's like Subaru is actually like progressing. Like they're actually taking a bigger swing, and I mean really like with this car and with this performance number, whether they come out with a combustion engine STI or an electric STI or heck maybe both, it tells me that it's probably going to hit a much higher performance number than you would maybe have thought before this. Than I would have thought before this was announced.
Subaru hasn't made an STI since 2006. Who said that?
Tasso.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I agree with him.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Well, it's just this is progress to me.
Sure.
I think.
Well, and the fact that it's out of the blue. I mean, none of us
Yeah.
knew about this. Like, it was just random.
Sure.
We work around Subarus all of the time.
Yeah.
And this was like, hey, by the way, they're announcing something.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
Before today, if you had asked me what's the next EV that Subaru was gonna sell, I would have been like Solterra Part 2.
Well,
I don't think.
to be fair, they've announced they were coming out with an electric SUV for about the last year, but no details other than that.
Right.
So, like, the fact that it came out is not that big of a surprise, but what it is to me, is a
Or
big surprise.
I kind of expected a plug-in hybrid Outback.
Which is coming. Maybe not a plug-in, but the Outback is going to get a hybrid.
Yep.
I think it's coming 27, because we're getting the Forester hybrid this year, 25, and I think the Outback hybrid is coming next year.
And the Forester Wilderness is next year.
Yeah, so the hybrids at least are coming, and I think that there's a big positive there. Like if you do the math on what they've announced for the Forester hybrid, it will be the most powerful Forester, but it seems like they're not going to let you use the full capability of the electric component and the combustion engine together. They're going to kind of mix and match it to kind of keep it, on par, just maybe a little bit better than what the Forester is. But it seems like it's a really neat drivetrain.
It'll be interesting. I'm especially driving an old Forester. I'm really curious to see what the new one feels like and all that, and maybe get to test it out for a day or something. Because just the gas mileage increase on that is kind of
Yeah.
reason enough.
It's like
Because the Forester
35
is like
everywhere.
a good SUV, and then you make it a hybrid, and it's really competitive at that point.
What's
with
super
everything.
interesting, if you're interested in the Forester, Driving Sports TV just tested the hybrid Forester against the RAV4 hybrid off-road, and because of basically the Subaru symmetrical all-wheel drive system, so both electric and combustion engine drivetrains are always powering all four wheels.
Yeah.
The Forester was definitely better set up off-road than the RAV4, because the RAV4, the drive lines or the axles are separated. Only electric power to the rear, and it's electric and combustion to the front, but there's not a connection to the two. So it was really interesting. You should check out that video.
Yeah.
But
Interesting.
it tells me again that's like with the X mode, with the wilderness, that Subaru is really looking at the off-road capability of their cars too. So they've really focused on that, and there's been obviously a lot of attention with that with the wilderness versions. But now with this, we've got some performance that's coming back into the fold.
Mm-hmm.
You know, in terms of like not just the BRZ, not just the WRX, but like really kind of moving that needle.
Yeah. Into the modern era.
Yes. Is there any part of what you saw today for the Outback or for the Trailseeker that is exciting, or that would make you consider, like, at least want to get in and test drive one?
I'm excited about the Trailseeker. I don't know. I can't put my finger on what, but I like the looks. I do, say what you will, but I like it.
I'm with you.
I'm
It
excited
looks
about.
like an older car.
Yeah.
Well, and just the performance, like that's what it should be.
Performance, yeah.
Like, can they do it right? Will it be something that is actually engaging and fun?
How much fun will it be in the snow?
A lot.
That's
Based,
what
based on
I'm really
based on the
interested about
Solterra,
that
I
one.
think you can have a lot of fun in the Trailseeker.
And how many fuses do you have to pull to have fun in the snow?
None.
With the X mode, I think you just put it in snow mode, because that turns the traction control off.
Sure.
Should. But that is true. You have
Yeah.
to explore that.
All right.
Yeah,
So
we'll
I haven't
find
had a
out.
chance to do that. I haven't actually even driven the Solterra.
It's worth doing.
Hmm.
It's worth doing.
Sounds
And
like
maybe
you don't
now
have anything
more,
to go to.
because if you get, it'll do all of this, but better and faster. Yeah. Because, I mean, the Solterra was fine. It didn't have that wow factor. And, like, if this now has the wow factor, I'm curious. But I have to know how it compares to the R2. So,
Still say, slam the Trailseeker on its nuts, or just
take it to the track.
just take it to the track in the first place and see what happens.
Yeah,
See what it can't do first.
sure.
If it can't brake or can't accelerate first, it's going to be one of those two things.
Yeah. Man, I wonder if the STI, the electric STI, is actually going to be an STI Trailseeker.
Or Trailseeker
That
STI.
makes no sense.
Trailseeker STI.
I mean, let's put it this way. Again, it's
It makes all the sense.
you
Put a
gotta
wing on it.
you gotta build.
Put a wing on it.
You get
Yes.
it.
You got you got
Sweet jumps?
Sweet
Oh,
jumps.
man, come on.
Sweet jumps.
Handling.
Well, it should have that too. If STI tunes
After
the
that,
suspension and the brakes, it will.
If it's got 8.3 inches of ground clearance, it doesn't have handling.
Well, you lower it. They have 6 inches of ground clearance.
That's still too much.
It's still going to be super. All right. Well, let us know what you're thinking.
Will it rally?
Can make that
Hashtag
happen.
is it a Subaru?
We didn't get to talk about this, but when we were talking, when the electric thing came up, I was thinking, this rally I was at, in some ways, an electric rally car would have been great, and in other ways, it could have been a real problem. Like,
Sure.
Yeah, like we had one stage that was 17 and a half miles long, and we did it, yeah.
It's the charging. The charging.
So
There's things that are coming out, like the solid-state batteries.
Honda's working on
At
it.
some point.
just saying. Yeah, I know you want to wrap up.
Well, I mean, that one, I think technology is moving that direction. It's just I don't know how fast we're going to get there. But yeah, you should. At some point, we'll get you in a Solterra so you can drive it off road and see what it's like.
I think within a decade we have electric rally cars.
I don't think. Well,
At least prototypes, maybe not a full series.
electric rally car. Yeah, we haven't figured out electric track cars yet.
If you know what, honestly, if you can just make it so that the batteries are small enough that they can be quickly switched out.
I mean, most rally
Yeah,
cars
yeah,
have a
yeah.
battery that's about this size. This regular starting charging
Yeah.
battery. So
I think if you took a battery that was even the size of most rally car fuel tanks, you could
Yeah.
probably swap. Like it's
That'd be, you need something that's twice the energy density probably
Yeah.
to do that. And we're not there yet, but maybe in 5 to 10 years, maybe they're ready. Who knows?
I'm telling you, within
Also,
a decade.
At least 2 cars went on fire this past weekend, so
Well, there's that.
there is that.
There
We
is
don't
that.
talk about those, Jeremy.
Solid
Electric
state,
cars don't catch on fire.
solid state, that's not a problem. See, that solves that
Rally
problem.
cars do, however, that's
Rally,
not an uncommon thing.
One thing at a time. One thing at a time. But so let us know in the comments. What do you think? Is this interesting? Are you more interested in the Trailseeker, the new Outback, the new Outback Wilderness? What do you think this means as far as like the numbers of what Subaru's come out with the Trailseeker or with the Solterra XT, which we didn't even really talk about, but even that makes 338 horsepower, which is only 3 less than the S209. So, moving in an interesting direction. Let us know in the comments what you think. Until next time, stay tuned to Flatirons Tuning.